Nobody can introduce this show better than Joey from Long Island. Let's hear it.
What the fuck happened?
That's exactly how the three of us are feeling today. Welcome to episode 41 of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast presented by Bet365. I'm Jonny Lazarus. That's Arthur Staple, longtime NHL reporter, and Mike Rupp, Stanley Cup champion. And Joey said it best. What the fuck happened? All three teams not in the playoffs for the first time ever. The Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers. And it's because of the three of us. Guys, we fucked up, huh? Pretty bad.
I mean, so if we took the beginning, our trailer for this,
yeah,
you remember that's when the only real bad thing at that point was the Rangers. The Rangers couldn't score on home ice. And remember, it was like, hey, Rupper, how you feeling over there in Jersey? I'm feeling fucking great. Let's go. long spring run for the Devs. And then Arthur's like, yeah, the Islanders, blah, blah, blah. And like everything was good. And then just all of them done. All of them.
That was pretty good, by the way. That sound effect.
I think it's on us, boys. I think it's on us.
Good sound effect. It is on us. It is on us. Joey got us started though, Arthur. Let's let Joey finish his thought. We're gonna do a full voicemail show today, and then we'll save the postmortem stuff for later in the week. But just got to react to that Islanders loss last night in the weekend. So here's the rest of Joey's voicemail.
What the fuck happened? Oh my god! I can't believe that we're here right now. 2 games left, and this is where we're at. It blows my mind. This is not the Islanders. I did not expect this from the Islanders. This is not the Islanders team that I thought was going to show up at the end of the year. That's for sure. That's for sure. That really just goes to show, this team really just wasn't ready. And the fact that we're going to land in the soggy middle again here, down a pick, it's not ideal, but I think I have faith in Darsch that he'll be able to make his mark on this lineup. He'll be able to bring in something to this lineup. Got to make a trade. Got to do something. I mean, I've heard rumblings, he could be moving on from guys like Barzal and Pellich and Pulak. And yeah, maybe. I don't know. What comes of it is what's most important, right? But I guess it is time to start thinking about moving on from some players. It sucks to think about, but I think this is where we are. What are you guys' thoughts? I don't know.
Poor Joey.
Poor Joey. Poor Joey, man. He goes, fucking Islanders. That's so good.
This is what they do to you. All three of these teams. Well, listen, Joey. Yes, I'm firmly on board. Like, we love this season. The vibes were great. We love what Matthew Schaefer's doing. We loved what Ilya Sorokin was doing up until about the last month of the season. They were scoring the goals when they needed to. They were playing a little loose, but it somehow was working. But the end result now that they're out is 5 seasons since they were good, 2 first-round playoff losses, 3 lottery trips. That's a bad team. That's not a team stuck in the middle. That's a team that's bad. And they'll finish with 91, maybe 93 points. It looks okay in the standings, but you changed the GM less than a year ago, changed the coach less than 2 weeks ago. What's left? What's left is a roster that's got a lot of guys that have been here for a long time and have had a lot of good contributions. Even this year, some of those guys have had good contributions, but and I, checking it, getting a little sneak preview with some of the other Islander fan callers. We're gonna get into the roster a little bit today, and we'll get into it a lot more in subsequent shows before we wrap up this godforsaken Tri-State season. But I feel like Schaefer's off the table, Sorokin is off the table, your top prospects are off the table, probably Bo Horvat. A couple other guys are off the table because you can't trade them for anything. But when you're talking buyout windows, when you're talking trades, there's a lot of familiar faces, I think, that should be up for discussion this summer for Matthew Darsch if he really wants to turn it around in a way that is going to befit the experienced, successful coach that he just hired and befitting some of the some of the moves he made in season that were win now moves. So, to pull the reins in and say, okay, now we're just going to kind of take our time and figure this slow turnaround in a different way. Like, I don't think that's the case. I think the collapse and the other moves that they've made tells me they got to be aggressive this offseason. And that means that some guys that everybody really loves might be on their way out.
Rupper, you got anything? Yeah, I mean, it's just a deep breath here.
Yep. So how we want to handle this? Like, how deep are we? We got a bunch of Islander calls. So are we gonna? You were gonna do the postmortem on probably the Islanders and maybe even the other two teams later this week. So like, I don't know how much you want to jump into this. Like what Arthur's saying. Like, yeah, you're gonna move on from some bodies here. I don't know what the calls are, so I don't want to like get into all of it and then be redundant when those calls come in. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see this coming. I will say though, all those things we said this year about liking this team having character, all those things, they have pushback, they got some fight in them. I still believe all of that. They fell apart at the end. They completely fell apart. I don't know what happened, just like Joey doesn't know what happened or any other Islander fan. And that probably, quite frankly, the team too. So that's the nastiness of the NHL sometimes, man. And I don't know. I mean, I saw a lot of Matthew Darsch slander online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get any of that. I don't, I'm sure at some point I'd love to get into that a little bit more because I don't, hindsight's 20/20, but I think he did the right thing at the deadline. And just the team fell apart, man, down the stretch.
So for me, just quickly, we'll get into all these different topics, but I look back March 18th, right? Like that's kind of where I'm going to when things started going wrong. That's when they lose to Ottawa in the last minute of that game in Ottawa, and they lose to Montreal a few nights later. At no point during those few games, like when like you think to yourself, oh man, this is bad for the Islanders. At no point did I think they wouldn't be making the playoffs. Like this whole time up until the last week, like maybe when they fired Wah, I was like, okay, they actually might miss like those two games or whatever. But the whole time, I was very, very confident that the Islanders were going to make the playoffs. We were making plans. We were making plans to do a live show from UBS Arena. Like I agree with Joey. Like I really didn't think we'd be talking about this. Even, with the 4 games left, I thought maybe they go 4-0 and get in. Like I didn't see this coming. I believed, I guess, in the Islanders, and maybe shame on me, but that's where I'm at with all this. That's where I'm at, So let's get into our next. Arthur, say something, and we'll get into our next voice.
No, I'll be quick. But you look at the record; they're 11-12 since the Olympic break. They actually won their first 3 out of the break, so it's 8-12 in their last 20. To me, this time of year, you go under 500 if you're anywhere close to the cut line, you're out because there's too many teams and you get too many 3-point games. So this, to me, was a collapse. Yeah, like the building gave way in the last 2 weeks for sure. You lose 6 or 7 this time of year, you have a hard time recovering. But this was 2 months, and I feel like if you're an Islander fan who says like we were good, but like that's a quarter of the season that you were not good enough, especially at the most important time. And there was no surprise injury. Kyle Palmieri was out back in November. Alex Romanov was out back in November. Those are 2 guys that figure into their regular plans for sure. So you miss them, but they were good without them for a few months. And I feel like, maybe we'll definitely, I think we got a call coming up, overplaying Ilya Sorokin yet again to try to desperately get in. It did not work. He did not play to the same standard he played to most of the year these last few weeks. So there's a lot of things that happened to contribute to this. But for me, it's not just a snap, like you wake up one day and like Joey said, what the fuck happened? I get that. That's the feeling right now. But this was a slow motion collapse for me and hints at why I feel like you need to make some pretty deep scoops out of this roster to change things going forward. But let's listen to the next one.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. RB.
Yeah, I'm only turning 19 in a couple months, and I haven't been around for some of the worst of this franchise, like the early 2000s. But at the end of the Lou tenure, everyone wanted him gone, and all of Twitter just wouldn't shut up about how he's the worst and how they'd pay for billboards to have him gone. And it's really sad to see that it's already happening with a rookie GM. And I mean, I can't support any of the moves he made this year, especially for Soucy, especially for Palat, but it's just crazy to see how fast, like, it went from, oh, we hate Lou to now we hate Darsch.
I'm with that. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily warranted. Like, I don't think he jeopardized that much. I don't think he changed that much.
No.
Think about 2 months ago, we're praising how different everything feels around the organization. You still can't take away from that.
Yeah.
Like, everything outside the rink is still great. It's still different. It still feels more fresh, feels more light, feels more fun. Like, just because they lost games doesn't mean the Islanders are not this new change of scenery or turn the page type of fun hockey team and fun organization. Like that is still there, you know, and that has a lot to do with Matthew Darsch. He's doing podcasts. You got guys doing media. Matthew Schaefer and Matt Barzal go on 32 Thoughts today. I haven't listened to it yet, so I can't speak to it, but you know, those two are doing interviews. Like it's still different, and it's still fine. Like the Islanders are in a fine position. And that's why I don't get why fans are freaking out. This was kind of the expectation going into the year, is that they weren't going to make the playoffs. Who picked them to make the playoffs before the year started? Nobody. So I don't know why everyone's
but
it changed along the way, but still.
Once you go through the year and you're emotionally invested, you're allowed to be fucking pissed at the end of it. Like,
yeah,
100%.
It hurts.
Fans invested their time. A lot of them invested their money in tickets. Like, yeah, you're entitled. I get what you're saying, and I feel like it's not that they're missing the point. The Soucy move and the Palat move, those are small bore moves. Those are to shore up spaces that are missing. Soucy's your number 6 defenseman, 5'6", whatever. And I understand he broke down, but he doesn't break down if Scott Mayfield isn't having a bad run alongside him, and Scott Mayfield is the mainstay. You don't notice Carson Soucy if Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock are playing the top level defense that they've been known to play before. This is on everybody. Andre Palat was playing 10 minutes a night. They didn't stuff him in the first line. I know he played top 6 for a couple of games after they got him, and you can quibble with, I guess, what they gave up and the fact that you've got him for another year and you've got to figure out what to do with him going into next season. I totally get that if you're gonna fill in an 11th, 12th, 13th forward gap, you don't do it with a guy who's got term. And Johnny, you know your tweet about Schenn, and there's some callers about the Schenn trade. I think that's a completely separate move from these other two. These two didn't perform, guys that have performed in the past, but they didn't perform on the backs of 12 other regular Islanders who didn't show up. You know, there were guys that were just not playing well enough down the stretch. They scored some goals. They couldn't play team defense. So yeah, I understand criticizing Darsch for those moves, but they didn't happen in a vacuum. They were a team that was not comfortably, but pretty steadily in a playoff spot. You're just shoring up, you know, their depth pieces. They're not guys that are meant to swing the momentum one way or the other. They're just there to supplement, and they didn't succeed at that for sure. But you know, the problems to me are elsewhere and are a lot deeper in the core of this roster.
Rupper, can I mention one stat before you go quick?
Yeah.
Because it has to do with the Brayden Schenn stuff, and we'll probably get into that, I imagine, when we have callers for it. But just, I mentioned that March 18th date. That was the day before the Islanders played Ottawa. They went 4-9 in their last 13 games. 4-9 in their last 13. And guess what? Brayden Schenn, in those 13 games, 5 goals. Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat combined for 3. Barzal has scored 1 goal. Horvat has scored 2 goals. Those are your best 2 offensive players. Where the fuck were they? You want to point blame at somebody, blame the 2 guys who carried you offensively all year long. That's what disappeared. Power play has been shit the last couple games. Like, where's the offense been?
Years, not a couple games, years. Just extend it out.
Yeah.
No.
So if we're pointing fingers, like I just like I don't get it, man. Like I get it because it's a low hanging fruit, but then again, like
we'll keep revisiting it when we get to these calls. But as far as the Matthew Darsch stuff and even like the Soucy and the Palat deals, even leading up to the Schenn deal, you know, like give or take, I was kind of digging on it, but so correct me if I'm wrong on these, but it's I think around like November, it was like November 20th, this team was in a playoff spot. And for like 110, 115 games, or sorry, days straight, we're holding the playoff spot until that date you're talking about, that loss to Ottawa.
Mhm.
So everything is saying that this team is showing and they're digging in all those, whatever the expectations were internally coming into the season, the guys were delivering on the ice. And it may not have been pretty all the time, but that was what we talked about with this team. They were finding a way. So they, from November 20th to March, whatever you said, 18th, they're
Yeah.
in a playoff spot. So, and I think when you look at the Palat deal, yeah, you could sit there and be like, well, he's got another year. Like, it wasn't working for the Devils. Like, why did they go and do this? Like, I think, in my opinion, you're looking at the roster and you're like, all right, we are in the position here that we look to be a playoff team this year. And no matter what the circumstances are, maybe it's because the East was, I know everyone's going to compare it to the Pacific, but the East wasn't very good. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of teams that we're still trying to figure out who is who. But I think when you look at the roster, when you go and get an Andre Palat, I think the underlying thing in this is that's the lack of confidence you have in an Anthony Duclair, the lack of confidence you have what Patrick Waugh maybe had and Shabanoff, and lack of confidence you have in a Siplikov, who obviously got traded in that deal. So my point is like you're looking at it like, all right, well, if we're going to go deep and we're going to be a playoff spot, which we have been for the last however many days when that trade happened for like an Andre Palat, you're sitting there like, well, we got to shore it up and get some veteran guys who know how to go through this grind and do the right things. And so like that to me is where the Palat deal came in. It's a lack of trust you have and maybe some of the other players if we're going to be a playoff team, which it looked like they were going to be. Doesn't take away from them completely falling apart like you mentioned down the stretch. But I think it's, for me, I was good with those deals at the time. Sure, we're going to sit here now when Palat has one goal in however many of his last games, like, yeah, we're going to say it didn't work out. But in the moment, it was something to try to solidify this group so you can go on some sort of playoff run.
I'm trying to find Palat's stats right now. But we can go into our next voicemail.
Difficult to calculate.
Yeah.
I think it was three or 4 points, I think, total.
Let's see. Yeah, Palat. I gotta scroll down here. last 12 games, 0 goals, 1 assist, -6. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Barzal, you mentioned Horvat. I mean, we already kind of mentioned the ultimate human eraser on this team, and Ilya Sorokin he just wasn't himself down the stretch. He was, whether it was tired, whatever it was. So when you get those things going, you're your best goal scorers on a team that's not overly scoring goals. They're not getting it done. And then you have the X factor you have above everybody else in the Vezina guy. He's not getting it done. I mean, what do you expect? 4-9 seems pretty it's not far off of what teams do when no one's producing and you're not getting goaltending.
Yeah, in those 13 games, Sorokin 4-9-0, 8.75 save percentage, 3.35 goals against.
Just the fact that he played all 13 is the main issue.
He started 12. Started 12 of the 13. He came in for Riddick in one of those games. And Riddick came in for Sorokin in, I think, 2 of those games.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's get to our next voicemail. Mike.
Hey, guys. Mike from Long Island here. A few things. First, has anyone seen number 14? He appears post-game, spewing the usual platitudes. It starts with me. We have to be better, blah, blah, blah. But when the puck drops, he is Mr. Invisible, man. I mean, he scored plenty in October and November, but when it really matters in springtime, nothing. Secondly, on Darsch, I'm not even talking about the Palat, Susi, or Schenn deals, which were not good. Rewind to the offseason, a backup goalie, David Rittich, or No Save Dave as he's now known, who was unplayable the last 2 months of the season. I mean, completely unplayable. John Drew in 1 year wasn't enough. You had to give him 2 years. And in 6 months, you're trading away a third-round pick to make him go away. It's just a terrible job. But I do like the DeBoer hiring, and I hope he has a lot of input on roster decisions because it's clearly needed. Lastly, and this is not a popular position, I know, but I try to sell high on Sorokin. He'll be 31 at the start of next season. He's not won anything here, and I truly don't think he's a big-time goalie. To me, he's the anti-Billy Smith. when the pressure dials up and you need him most, he cracks or he becomes very ordinary. And the excuses for this guy from the fan base are just endless. Please, enough. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Pretty respectful way to rip through your team.
Hey,
I got a few things. The problem with that Sorokin argument is they're way below. They're where the Rangers are. Sorokin's just average for the whole season, so it takes away from the argument. So
I don't know if I said this. I'm pretty sure I said it in one of our earlier pods, and I'm not saying this should happen, but we've seen situations like this in the past where when you're trying to. The last regime had, I mean, you go look at the salary makeup or the roster makeup of this team. It's a lot of, I mean, it's a big knot. Like it's a lot of trying to pick at this thing. Like if you're, it can't, you're not going to be able to just, get rid of all these old guys. I mean, you're going to strip it down. No one wants to have a complete rebuild, and maybe Islander fans want to, but it never seem like management in this team wanted to do that. And there's so many contracts that are going on for quite some time still. And you mentioned the Jonathan Drouin extension, and it goes on and on. I sit there and I think, and the comparable that I would use, and I say it to Corey all the time, Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider was the worst thing that happened to the Devils when they traded for him, because the Devils were not a good hockey team. And Corey Schneider gave them this false sense of, maybe we're a bubble team. We could be in the playoffs. And I'm not trying to compare Ilya Sorokin, because Sorokin should win the Vezina this year. But that's kind of what I thought about the last number of years with Sorokin. Do I ever want to trade the best goalie or one of the best goalies in the league? Absolutely not. But where your team's at and where the age is, I mean, isn't the name of the game like either we're in or we're going to try to get some really high picks? Like that seems to kind of be the NHL now. And Sorokin kind of, we talk about so much. I mean, if you were in a world where the team, almost like under Barry Trotz, which I know was a few great years as far as what they did in the playoffs, but probably pretty frustrating for fans in some regard too, because they're so structured. Everything was like the boring hockey, all that stuff. But you also had really good goaltending between him and Varlamov. So like, at least those two things complemented each other. You are one of the worst defensive teams in hockey, and you have the best goalie, or this year's best goalie. That's not a good combination. And who's to say that's going to change moving forward? So what Mike's saying, I don't think it's a bad. I think you have to look at all avenues and figure out, because this team, by the time they get to the point where you think that they are a contender, is Ilya Sorokin a dominant goaltender? I don't think so. So, I mean, you got something there. I don't think they do anything, but I've seen this story before, and it stinks, because you get this middling ground, which this organization was already in, is now in that middling ground again. So, just something to think about with Ilya Sorokin. That's at least my opinion.
Can I offer something quick? Like, Rupper, the conversation I feel like we had and you brought it up a few months ago, is like, go get players while Matthew Schaefer's on his entry-level contract. So right now, you got Schaefer for 2 more years, making under $1 million. Now you got Brayden Schenn for those 2 years. Maybe just ride it out with Sorokin for 2 more years. I know that's not when his contract ends, but give it 2 years to be competitive. Keep Matthew Schaefer in a competitive environment. I don't think you want to tear it down now after Schaefer gets a taste of what it could be like and gets so close. Like, I think at this point it's too late to tear it down. So,
but the problem,
but
the problem with that is you got. Time. I mean, that Like the one guy we talked about maybe wanting to bring back is Tony DeAngelo because he's been pretty effective and this team does pretty well with him. But it's like, well, you should probably change something. You know what I mean? But everybody else is under contract and have no move clauses. So I don't know. It's a strange spot. I know what you mean. I think that is the window probably with Sorokin. It's these next 2 years and maybe lines up really nicely with the Schaefer entry level coming up. But I think the easiest way for me to, in my opinion, which everybody knows, it's a mess of a roster that he inherited, like a mess. And when the team played well this year, you're like, all right, well, maybe this is our answer where we have this. Matthew Darsch said it on our pod here, where he said, our veteran group has this window. So I'm going to basically help them out in that window because that's a real important thing, I think, as far as keeping your culture and keeping the mojo going in a room. Can you imagine like all these guys that have been signed and have protection, are going to be here for years or at least have the ability to be here for years, and you're playing yourself into a playoff spot where no one really thought you were going to be, and then for the new GM not to do anything, that'd be like, fuck this guy. So I think you got to throw him a bone, and that's why I was good with these moves that he made. But I think he inherited an absolute mess. We know this. That roster was a mess. It still kind of is. He's trying to navigate through it.
I'll just throw in a dose of cold water. Sorokin's got 6 years left with a full no move, so he ain't going anywhere. Like trading goalies, once you sign them to those deals, trading goalies as it is seems pretty impossible because everybody evaluates them so differently. I feel like I don't know, you'd never get equal value back, and you'd have to start over and try to find a number one goalie and a number two goalie because you're not bringing David Rittich back either. So I think the solution for Sorokin, and as someone who's watched them a lot through some of these down years, the last 5 years, it happened when Lane Lambert was about to be fired a couple of years ago when they brought in Patrick Waugh, tried to ride Sorokin all the way through. It was when Varlamov was just starting to break down with the knee problems. And then Waugh came in, they did make the playoffs, but Sorokin was gassed at the end of it. Last year when they didn't make the play, there's been a stretch every year that Sorokin's been the number one guy where he's got to play 12 or 13 in a row. And it's just not, it's on him now to figure out at age 30 how to be able to handle that. Cause I think he's got to know now he's a 55, 60 start guy. Varlamov has another year left after the double knee replacement. I don't know if he's ever going to play again. You're not going to bring in a guy out of free agency who's a veteran you're going to say, okay, you're getting 30 to 35 starts here. Sorokin's the guy, and you got to be able to act like the guy. It's not Marty Brodeur playing 70 games, but you got to be able to play 55 to be part of a winning team. So I think that's number one. And number two, we'll get into it again with who they should be looking to move out, or the trade protection. We're not talking about Tom Fitzgerald and the Devils where guys have no moves and they can veto anything that happens. There's guys with partial no trades, with 10-team yes lists, with 15-team yes lists. It's got to be aggressive. I think he could take a page, maybe not the abruptness with how he did it, but take a page from Chris Drury. Say like, okay, we've got all these guys. I came in here, I didn't sign any of these guys to these clauses, but you go to them and say in the exit meetings and say, I don't know who's coming back. I may have to have a conversation with you where we say, you're not going to be part of this group coming back. So you need to figure out, do you want to work with us and go to a destination that you want to go to, or are we going to have to do this the hard way? I think this is a big make or break time for Darsch just in his first year, and it's a lot on his plate, but it's really important summer coming up.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, Johnny, just real quick.
Yeah,
Arthur said that it's a good point. When you're looking at all of the terms of the no moves, no trade, modified no trades, it's going to take some gymnastics, I think, in some of these, but they're not full. There's not a ton of full no moves. There's not a ton of them. There's some that are challenging because there are some, but it is not like the Devils. I mean, when you're looking at that column, like there's a ton of trade hurdles.
The only no move is Sorokin. That's the only no move. A couple other guys.
They got
Palat.
Yeah, and then
oh, you're right.
Palat has a no move.
Yeah, Palat's got a no move as well, and then you got the Horvat one kick.
That's no trade. No trade.
Yeah, it's no. All right, so whatever.
Yeah, but You got wiggle
But-
room with some guys that you could
Yeah.
get something back for.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, yeah, let's get to the next one.
Hey guys, Chris from Hicksville. The Islanders just got eliminated. Obviously, very disappointing, to say the least. A lot of positives to take from this year, but to say it wasn't a disappointing end wouldn't be a truthful statement. Johnny, I don't think you have the power to make a team win or lose.
Yes, I do, Chris.
Although
Yes,
having
I
said
do.
that, when
Obviously never
showed
watched you
up
play
to
in college.
the Ottawa game on Saturday, if Chaz Palminteri was sitting next to you, I think he probably would have ripped up his ticket and walked out. And then finally, a question for Arthur. Mentioned to you on your Hockey Night New York show on Sunday about Jason Robertson. People like Pierre LeBrun have suggested it's possible he could become available. And you have been floating out, there could be significant changes. Does a Barzal Aitchison package get very close to getting a deal done with Dallas, provided that A, they can trade Barzal to Dallas, and B, Robertson would be willing to sign an extension? One thing to keep in mind is Robertson only has 1 year left of Dallas, only has 1 year left of control. All right, guys, maybe we'll get lucky with the lottery balls. Okay, love the show. Thanks.
Yeah, I remember that question from Chris over the weekend. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. You think about Barzal. He's a center nominally. DeBoer is using him as a center now, but really he's been a wing for the last couple of years. So that you don't normally trade a center who's your highest scoring player and your star player for a wing, even if it's Jason Robertson. But Barzal's really kind of a hybrid now. So I think if you're thinking about a Jordan Kyrou trade, that's not an even trade. But if St. Louis threw more in, same with Vancouver and Brock Besser, that's the place and the type of player. And we've talked about it a million times ahead of the deadline. That's the type of player the Islanders need. They need a dynamic guy who thinks scoring, who thinks offense first, who can help their power play. And if Barzal's the chip that gets it done, it'd be an interesting one. And I think a lot of people would struggle to wrap their heads around trading Mathew Barzal for anything short of a star player on another team. But to my thinking, and I'll did a little research on this, outside of Barzal's Calder Trophy winning year when he had 85 points and the Islanders power play operated at a really high level. They had John Tavares, they had Anders Lee, they had Nick Leddy at the point. So we're talking the last since 2018-19 through this year. Islanders power play collectively 16.8%. That's 30th in the league over that entire span when Barzal has basically been the pivot guy, the guy with the puck on the number one power play unit. So to me, that's, it's a big failing. It's a big reason why they failed this last week. The game against Ottawa, not just converting on any of those power plays, but giving up the shorthanded goal was huge. Like Rupper was saying, just not making a lot of good decisions. And now you have Matthew Schaefer, a guy who can really run a power play pretty much single-handedly and try to be the guy that's directing traffic and holding the puck a lot. I wonder about Barzal's utility, about his influence to this team going forward to be able to get them collectively better. So I think, if I was Matthew Darsch, I would be exploring a lot of Mathew Barzal trades. I'd be talking to him about, I think he's got a 9-team yes list. I would imagine that teams like Seattle and Vancouver, close to home, are on his yes list. Two teams that are probably interested in having a scorer, a distributor like that. So, it seems a little far fetched. I don't know if Jason Robertson is the deal you can get done there, and I don't know if even Barzal plus Aitchison is enough to get it done. But to me, the guy, and it's not because Mathew Barzal is a bad player. It's what you can get back. Not many of their other forwards are really movable when you talk about trade protection and age, and you're not really getting a whole lot back for them. So to my mind, that's kind of the number one question for me this summer is Matthew Darsch going to talk about trading Mathew Barzal? Does Mathew Barzal want to go anywhere and change the scenery up after all these years of lack of success? So that's kind of the main thought in my mind going into this offseason with this roster.
Well, I think if you're not re-signing Lee if you're willing to trade Matt Barzal. Like at this point, it seems like fans want to get rid of what was here for those conference final runs, right? Like Arthur, you mentioned they've won three playoff games since then.
I wouldn't say want to get rid of. I think it's one of those situations where we're like, we want change, and then you say, all right, we're trading Mathew Barzal, and immediate response is, no, not like that. Like there's just this idea of change. To my mind, you've got that core three on D of Adam Pelech, Ryan Pulock, Scott Mayfield. Scott Mayfield's
here for a while.
Scott Mayfield's contract is probably untradeable with the way that the where he is in his career, how he's played the last couple of years, injuries, things like that. I think you'd have to more think about a buyout with him. Ryan Pulock has a full no move, married to a woman from Long Island. They just had a baby. He's going nowhere voluntarily, that's for sure. And Pelech has a 15-team yes list. And he's a guy who's got 3 years left at 5.75. He can still play second pair. He's probably a good candidate for a team that could use a guy who's very defense oriented. So I wouldn't want to. Adam Pelech wouldn't be my first choice, but practically speaking, he's the guy that can bring something back. You're much deeper on the left side than you are on the right organizationally, because you've got Alex Romanov coming off the injury. Maybe you've got Aitchison creeping up in the next year or two to take a spot on the left side. Obviously, you've got Schaefer. So I just look at this roster, and again, it is filled with a lot of dead weight, but there are ways in my mind, in theory, to change the look. And that's why when I say subtraction, to me, is more important this summer than addition. You need to bring in the right guys, but I think they need to move out the right guys too, to really shake things up and remind people that this is a team that's moving into a new era, a new generation, like all the things we talk about off the ice, on the ice. They've changed a lot. Now it's time to change kind of the core group on the ice and start to move forward a little bit.
Sounds like the Rangers conversation we've had the last few years, huh? Kind of.
Yeah.
You got to subtract. You got to subtract. That's what it was.
Yes.
Get rid of Trouba, get rid of Kreider.
It is a hard thing. I'll jump it over to you, Rupper, but it is a hard thing for fans to wrap their heads around, because you're always looking at, like, who are we going to add? Who are we going to add? But you got to have room. And I'm not talking about cap space. You got to have room on your roster to let these guys, new guys, young guys, take those spots over. The way that Matthew Schaefer's done it, totally unprecedented for me in the local area. We've never seen a kid like this in his first year, not just be part of a team and be a contributor, but command the attention that he commands, be such a central part of what they're doing out of nowhere. So I feel like that's a good catalyst for Matthew Darsch or Peter DeBoer to say, okay, there's no sacred cows here. We don't need to have Mathew Barzal be the guy with the puck for 30 seconds on PP1. We can start to think about different things and different ways to do it. So if it takes removing guys from the roster, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I love what you said there. I mean, just removing guys, even from the aspect of, I mean, all the focus is going to be on Matthew Schaefer, deservingly so. But then there's also, I like Holmstrom a lot. You got Cal Ritchie. Yeah. You've got Heineman. Like, there's some pieces here. And a lot of times it's about opportunity too. There's a little bit of a line at times of this during the season of veteran players that have been in front of those guys. So let's run with them. See what they've got. I mean, I think you subtract quite a bit, and then it's like what Arthur said, strategic adds that have to hit and have to change, and that's where I think Pete DeBoer comes into play, because Pete DeBoer's job in the way the discussion, I think, between the staff and the management is going to be like, this is the vision of where we think we're going to go here. And it could be X's and O's, it could be all that good stuff, but it's going to be personnel as well. Like, let's start getting that to fit, because you can't take this roster that we've seen for a while and then just place a coach in there and say, we're going to play differently. You play, that's why I think this is not Pete DeBoer. He's a very successful coach in this league. But I feel like some teams get it wrong where you'll have a coach. It's like, this is how Coach X coaches. His teams look like this. Well, it kind of matters to what kind of players you have.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to adjust to the roster that you're given as well. So this is kind of maybe a clean spot in that they could maybe make a couple subtractions and then play the right kind of game that Pete DeBoer wants to play. So to me, it's about some opportunities here for some of these younger guys.
I still think, though, and just to wrap this up before our last Islanders voicemail, when the Islanders were playing their best hockey this year, like I still think that team could have won a playoff round. Like I'm not, my mind
yeah.
hasn't changed on that. And I know,
I do
I know
too.
the
Totally
underlying
agree.
numbers. Yeah, the underlying numbers and analytics probably don't support that. But like when this team was at its best, like we think back to that stinker they had against was it Chicago? And the next game they beat Dallas. You know what I mean? Like they had this ability even when they were bad to bounce back. They bounced back a ton this year. Ilya Sorokin being a big part of that. You know, I think before the Dallas game they got spanked to Montreal the night before, and he started the back-to-back, right? Like wasn't that it or
I
something
think
like
that was Columbus. Yeah, but
Columbus. Yeah, he's the shutout against Columbus. Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So like I don't think I feel like everyone now is saying they tricked us. They were a bad team this whole time.
No, man.
I don't think that was the case.
There was a path to make potential noise. I mean, it's a big
There
what
was.
if, but you could say that though. If we're gonna, you could say that for every team. You know what I mean? Like you just the Metro.
I wouldn't have said that for the Flyers. I wouldn't have said that for the Flyers.
Finishing.
I totally disagree. I think
finishing 2-3. There's you got a path here. You're probably gonna have Carolina in round 2, but you get going, and then you never know what can happen.
Listen. Carolina plays Ottawa in the first round. I don't know that I'm picking Carolina in that series.
I'm taking Ottawa.
Yeah,
I'm taking Ottawa too. Yeah.
To feel like all our three teams missing the playoffs the first time ever, and to have it be this fucking year where any of the three of them could have gotten in and won 2 rounds easily. I mean, you could think about the Ranger team as it looks right now could win a playoff round if Schaefer.
1,000%. 1,000%. The power play has been great.
You just said it. You just said it, Arthur. Think about it from that standpoint. When we're talking about the Rangers and Islanders, there's no matchup you're going to have where you don't have superior goaltending. Like you are by far. Who's gonna comp? I mean, Carolina is not.
Tampa's the only one, but that's not.
Pittsburgh's not. It's Tampa, and chances are you're not going to be playing through Tampa anyways until potentially Eastern Conference Finals. So that's the frustrating part here. It's like this was the year. This wasn't cutthroat. I know people are going to say, "Well, the Metro was good. The Metro was this." Look at the cut. No, it was not good. The Metro was not good. Like we're going to compare it to the Pacific, which is like a whole nother world. But like it's not that it was not a good division, and you had an opportunity. Every team had an opportunity, and you know what? The Flyers are going to be the fucking Flyers are going to be the ones that take advantage of it. That's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more.
If I was, Philly better win it tonight, because if Wash gets in, Logan Thompson, his numbers are now goal saved above expectation are better than Sorokin's. Because of the last 2 weeks on Clear Side Hockey. He's jumped ahead into first. If Washington gets in and faces Pittsburgh, like this could be one of those years where every road team in the playoffs in the East wins the first round. Like,
wouldn't that be something though? Wouldn't that be something if of all this, Washington is the one that gets in and we get a Crosby Ovi one last time?
That'd be fun to watch.
Be pretty special.
Let's not upset our local fans even more.
We shouldn't even say that because we'll make Washington won't win another game now.
No. All right, we got one more Islanders voicemail, then a couple Devils ones, and then we'll finish talking a little Rangers before we wrap up today's show. So this last one's from Harrison. Wait, I thought we had a couple more, Vic. This is from Harrison. Sorry.
So funnily enough, I remember my first voicemail sent in 4 months ago with the Islanders was about how they were not great analytically and defensively and relying on Sorokin to bail them out. But they won, and I asked basically how long they could keep it up. And I guess they kept it up until last week. So I guess the question is that what's the appetite for going full Chris Drury on the team? There's a lot of no movement clauses, and hypothetically, maybe you can look at moving out Pelech or Pulock. But I feel as if the no movement clauses kind of impede the roster construction and not even blowing it up. So I'm wondering, is there an appetite or is there any way you can get off of any of these long-term contracts, whether that's by sweetening the deal or by asking players to waive, and if that's even possible or realistic to change the team? Thanks, guys. I've been listening all season.
Thank you, Harrison.
Yes.
I feel like we kind of just did this, though. Yeah, right?
Yeah. There is a way, and it's got to be aggressive, and you got to, I think we're in this age of everybody's got some sort of trade protection other than young guys who don't really want to move. So You got to be able to work with players and agents and do it in a forceful but friendly way where you say to guys like, you're not going to be part of this going forward. So let's talk about what we're going to do here. And that could go for Adam Pelech. That could go for Scott Mayfield. That could go for Mathew Barzal. It could go for a few other guys. Even Brayden Schenn doesn't have a full no trade. So, I think they can do it. I think there's a path here. And as we're talking about how weak the Metro is and how wide open the East is, I think there's a path for all three teams to get back into it pretty quickly. If you have the right offseason. I don't think, it sucks right now to be talking about something unprecedented, but I think we could very well be sitting here this time next year and talking about all three teams being in. I honestly
agree.
I mean, the Devils will be a contender way before these two teams.
That I agree with too. I do agree with that.
Hey, you guys can't deny that.
No,
as long as they don't mess it up.
Agree.
They can't mess it up though.
So I lied. We do have
GM Mike Rupp will solve all their problems.
Yeah. We do have one more Islander voicemail. So I misspoke there. This is from Mike Partner.
Hello, it's Mike from Brooklyn. I just saw Johnny's tweet about Darsch not giving up too much for Brayden Schenn. And I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. It's only going to be the 28th overall pick, maybe like the 31st overall pick. But it's just about this team not being close right now. That's the thing. Yeah, you could reward the boys. You could have done the Bobby McMahon deal. Give up a second and a fourth round pick, a guy that you could maybe re-sign. The fact that it is Brayden Schenn, somebody that's horrendous defensively at this point, has another 2 years at 6.5, and he's 34 years old. We're old and slow enough already. That's the problem. Yes, the first round pick is not going to be some superstar, most likely, even though it might be 27th overall, like where Cal Ritchie went in the draft. The problem is not identifying that this team is not a Brayden Schenn away, and that Brayden Schenn is not the player that he's been prior. So I get what you're saying. It's not going to set the Islanders Schaefer core back 5 years, but it's really scary in terms of the long-term future, especially when you add on top Carson Soucy and Andre Palat deals, which are just like objectively horrible.
Here's the thing with Brayden Schenn, though, and Mike, thanks for calling. Mike Barton, a well-known guy in hockey media. But did anyone say that they were a Brayden Schenn away from doing it? Like, Brayden Schenn came in to help, and Matthew Darsch was clear when we talked about it with him on our show that it was a part of a 2-year plan. And guess what? If they don't re-sign Anders Lee, Schenn is there to be that captain-like figure to help Matthew Schaefer for 2 more years till he wears the C in 2 years probably. And we know it's going to be Matthew Schaefer's team at some point. And I know fans don't want to hear that. How many captain-like guys do we need? How many leaders in the room do we need? Guess what? Schenn and Palat are the only 2 skaters on this team that have won a cup. Rupper, you could speak to that. You probably need some guys who have won before to help show the guys the right way to do it. Like I'm just assuming, I've never been in the locker room, but I feel like those guys, usually what they say holds a lot of weight. And honestly, I think back to, I think it was March 30th, because I was looking through all the Islanders games before. March 30th, Brayden Schenn scores the goal to put the Islanders up 3-1 at home against Pittsburgh. I think I saw Twitter reactions after that. This is why we got Brayden Schenn. What a big fucking goal. And guess what? Then they go on the power play and let up a shorthanded goal, and Pittsburgh scores 6 straight goals, 6 unanswered goals. Like, it's the power play that killed them. Like, I don't think it's Brayden Schenn who killed their season. And to me, like, I was at the game against Ottawa, Brayden Schenn in the first period after Anders Lee dropped the gloves with Tkachuk. It was Brayden Schenn who set the tone. Brayden Schenn threw a huge hit on Stützle. Brayden Schenn led the way with hits. Brayden Schenn was the spark plug for that game, and they had no offense to follow up with it. So I'm not a Brayden Schenn defender. I am obviously gracious for Matthew Darsch coming on our show and talking to us, but he was very clear in the fact that he had a plan, and this was not just a random forced move. So that's why I'll support it. I will support the guy who takes the risk, tries to reward his guys, and the one who says, like, hey, I believe in these guys can win a round, maybe 2, who knows? Like, I'd much rather have that guy than the guy who does absolutely nothing, because I think had, like Rupper said before, had Matthew Darsch not done anything, it's a slap in the face to all the guys who were in second place in the Metropolitan Division, home ice advantage at the time of the trade.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't. I understand these are the only 3 moves he made in the season, but you can't compare those to to the other two moves. The other two moves, like we said, these are support moves. Schenn is a guy, and you can question it, and we did at the deadline. I thought once I saw that it was Brayden Schenn that was coming in that deal, I said, okay, well, probably means JG Pageau is going to walk at the end of the year if they make the playoffs or not. And within 10 minutes, JG Pageau had a 3-year extension. And
I
Darsch
questioned
again
that one.
explained that and saying center is a wasteland in terms of free agency this summer. So you're set down the middle now. I mean, Barzal's been playing center with Schenn on the wing, but essentially you've got 5, maybe even 6 centers if you count Cal Ritchie. So you've got a lot of guys who played center, who are flexible at it, but your main 4 down the middle, you got Horvat, got Schenn, Barzal, Pageau, Casey Cizikas. So you're set there. Now you need to make a little bit more dynamic things happen on the wings, I think, for them to improve their offense. Those 4 guys outside of Horvat having a pretty good scoring year this year until the last couple of weeks. You're not relying on them for the core of your offense up front. So you do need to get a little bit more dynamic on the wings. And I think maybe that's the mandate. And that's why, excuse me, I feel like, Barzal is a candidate to kind of bring back some of those assets or free up some room. You're going to get Kyle Palmieri back for another year after coming off the ACL, and he was a point per game player. I keep
forgetting about that.
I know, it's hard to remember. But so now you've got this mix of Holmstrom, Heineman, Palmieri, maybe Barzal, Cal Ritchie, maybe Anders Lee, maybe Victor Eklund, who's come over from the Swedish league and has 9 points in 5 games in the AHL. You've got some candidates here to create a more dynamic forward group offensively and certainly on the power play. So, you can ding them for the Schenn trade for deciding that that's the guy that you want in the middle of your lineup for the next couple of years. I totally get that. I think that wasn't Matthew Darsch's first choice before the deadline. I'm sure that there were other guys that they were talking about, but he committed to that. They committed to Pageau. And now you've got to work around it. And I still think there's a lot of changes that need to be made, like we went into before. But I feel like there are some blocks in place where if you put them in the right spots, you take a couple guys out and replace them with maybe 1 or 2 key guys. Maybe a young guy comes up and steals a spot. Suddenly you look like a team that's a playoff team again. That can really do some damage and make some noise offensively.
The other thing while you're saying that too, it's like just remember what this deadline was, and even leading up to it, there's teams like the Detroit Red Wings. We see them get officially eliminated. They needed a center. The market was it was a seller's market. Like the costs were too much. We saw Detroit; they didn't do anything. Minnesota the rumors were. I mean, not rumors, it's been factual for the last however many years they're looking for a center. The costs were too high. We talked about some of the guys that were those players, whether it was, what's his name? Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas's name. You got the 2 guys in Nashville with Stamkos and O'Reilly. And I think that eventually got to the point where Nashville was at, and they're like, oh, you're going to have to swoon us to get these guys out of here. And then you go to Vinny Trocheck, like the asks were high. So to your Arthur's point, like, I'm sure Matthew Darsch had some other plans here, and where would we be sitting right now if this team was in the same spot? And he paid a premium and went and got Steven Stamkos. It could very well be in the same spot right here, and you would have paid a lot more. So I thought this was the market was it was weird. A lot of teams didn't do anything when we thought they're going to, and I don't know. We'll see what they do with that roster in the summer.
And just kind of looking at like power play points, I've been using this March 18th benchmark. The Islanders' power play points since March 18th, this is 13 games. Brayden Schenn with Anders Lee, Horvat, D'Angelo, Barzal, Heineman, Ritchie, and Schaefer. Those guys all have 2 points on the power play each.
Yeah,
nobody has more than 2 points on the power play in 13 games. That's crazy.
It's the refrain that you hear from Islander fans even before we, for the last couple of years. If we had even a bare minimum average power play, a 19% power play, they would have been in the playoffs last year in all likelihood, or a couple of years ago, and they would have been in the playoffs this year. It's frustrating for sure. And you saw it in such stark relief. Even not just the Ottawa game, those Philly and Carolina games with those no-shows before Waugh got fired, they gave up shorties in both of them. So these are the three biggest games that they had of the season. And not only are you not producing power play, you're a net negative. You're not even defending well enough to keep teams that are hungrier than you off the board. So
I mean, I can't even. I don't know what the exact number is, but I feel like since the second half of the season, I feel like they've given up a boatload of shorties against.
Yeah, so many.
they give
So
up
many.
up
I mean, the
to-
first goal against Ottawa, shorthanded goal.
And how many games down the stretch, like late games down the stretch, was it? They're struggling to get double-digit shots late into the game. Like you're late into the game, so it's not. I mean, it's power play would certainly help generate some of those, but like 5-on-5, like everything fell apart. Everything fell apart, and I don't know how, why. It was a nasty, choking.
So this weekend, Rupper, looking at Sport Logic, the Islanders were given 4 total grade A chances between the two games. They had 1 grade A chance against Ottawa, which was in the first fucking minute of the game when Cal Ritchie had the play in front and couldn't beat Olmark up tight. That was the only grade A chance they had, and then they had 3 against Montreal the other night. That can't happen. And just to lead into the Devils here, because we're gonna go Devils next to kind of talk some shit, or I guess give Devils fans something to laugh at. Since that March 18th date, the Islanders' leading scorer, we talked about it on the last show. Is it a problem that Schaefer and Ritchie are the leading scorers down the stretch? That is a problem, but Matthew Schaefer is the Islanders' leading scorer in the last 13 games with 10 points. You know how many points Jack Hughes had since March 18th? 26. 10 goals, 16 assists since March 18th. Insane. So let's talk Devils. I know we have a couple Devils voicemails. Did we do the stat from Ben last show, Rupper, with the Olympics thing?
I don't think so.
Did we read that out?
We used
Do you
it.
have that handy?
We use it on the MSG broadcast, but yeah, why don't you use it? Hey, listen, it doesn't. I like it because it gives us something positive to talk about for them. But he's been on a tear, like you mentioned. You got it?
I'm gonna pull it up right now. I just need a second.
So Jack, since
I got it right now. Yeah.
Right, since '98 Olympics, post-Olympics, he has the most points per game average than anybody else. It's pretty impressive.
1.17. 1.71, excuse me. 1.71 points per game. That's more than Joe Thornton, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Daniel Sedin, Marty Necas, Jaromir Jagr, Henrik Sedin. Pretty insane stuff from Jack Hughes.
Connor's was obviously this year as well. Yeah. And then Jack was, when we got that stat from our boy Ben from North Carolina, he was he had it, and then that was the night Connor had 5 points last week, and then he kind of jumped over Jack, but now Jack's got it back here. So I don't know, whatever. It's just showing you kind of the mission that Jack's on right now, and I mean, I think that's a good thing to see.
And since Ben is our first voicemail caller, may as well have used his stats. So this is from Ben himself.
Very nice.
What's up, fellas? This is Ben from NC. When Fitz was still the GM, during the trade deadline, he was looking for a scoring winger to play with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt. But it's really looked like the Jack Hughes and Connor Brown Jesper Bratt line has looked really good together. And I would potentially keep them together going forward to next season. It's kind of reminiscent to like Chris Kunitz and Sidney Crosby, where you have that defensive conscious in Kunitz, and that's Brown. And even like Devils yesteryear, when during the 03 playoffs, where they had Scott Gomez, Patrick Elias, and Grant Marshall for a bit as a trio. So I'm wondering, do we still try to get that scoring winger to maybe play on the Nico line or even break up that Jack Hughes line? Like revisit maybe a Jordan Kyrou, Matthew Nyes, or even a white whale like Brady Tkachuk? Or should we try to recalibrate during the offseason, maybe upgrade on the third line at center and kind of reimagine that fourth line to get more of an identity? Anyways, just wanted your opinion. Would you break up the Hughes trio or try to lengthen the Devils lineup a bit? Easy, Rupper. Easy.
Rupper, I think you start this one off.
Yeah, so I like that with. I thought Connor Brown's looked great, and I always go back to this, and you could take this as a positive or maybe maybe you're not fulfilled with this, but I just even think back to the Stanley Cup Finals this past year, where Connor Brown got moved up to Connor McDavid's line, and they obviously have a history together playing in the Ontario Hockey League, and but that just shows you, like, even in those clutch moments, he's not getting moved there unless Connor McDavid likes playing with him. I mean, that's just how it is. It's coaches aren't going to try something, or it's not going to stick if a superstar like that. So I think that that's Connor wanted to play with him during those finals, and it was kind of what Connor needed. They need a little bit of a boost, and we saw how good he's been with Jack. The one thing for me that I do like that. I think it's something. I don't know. I mean, this has been a pretty good year for him. I don't know over the course of an entire season how that will look, and but it's certainly something I think you start off with, because I think with Jack and Jesper, like that's enough right there. You need someone that's going to play just predictable hockey, good defensive conscience, can jump in and get involved offensively. And Connor Brown, he thinks the game with Jack and Jesper. Like it's pretty fun to watch. So I do agree. I would leave that line. The line that I think needs the biggest change is the second line. And that second line, I think, if you're going to go Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, park Dawson Mercer for a second, I think the team should be going out and looking for another big body straight line skater that can forecheck. And it doesn't even it could even be under the same kind of the same ilk of Connor Brown with Jack Hughes line, where just give me some intangible straight line energy type guy who's going to play big and physical, because I think Timo Meier needs that. I think Timo Meier, he'll run around like a bull sometimes, but I think he needs someone else running with him on that line. Let the brains be in the middle there with Nico. I think that could benefit this team in a big way. So that to me is the bigger spot. And then that would bring you to what's going to go on with Cody Glass. I did like the Cody Glass, Hamanaho and Gritsuk line as a third line, which, by saying all these things, makes Dawson Mercer kind of expendable a little bit. I love his game. I'm never going to say a bad thing about Dawson Mercer. I love what he brings. But for this team that we talked about for so long, having pieces that are very difficult to move and some that are maybe not being sought after by other teams, he would be. So that's kind of where I'm at. My attention would be more towards line 2, another big body that can be tough on the forecheck with Timo.
Can you find a way to move Timo? I know he's got a no move, but he's been a bit of a disappointment now.
I don't think
He's
so.
not going
That's
anywhere.
It's a lot of cash for him to move, I think.
Do the Devils need another top 6 guy? Like their Achilles heel this year outside of goaltending was giving up incredible numbers of chances and quality of chances. And I understand that doesn't just fall on your decor, but if you got another guy who's whistling the puck around, who's got super high end offensive skill with guys that already have a ton of offensive skill, I feel like, and again, all bets are off because we don't know who the GM is going to be. We don't know necessarily downstream from that who the coach is going to be. So Connor Brown may a new front office and a new coach may have different designs on what Connor Brown's going to be going forward with this team. But even if you keep him there, which I think is a good idea, I always kind of subscribe to the you need pairs. You don't need like a full line of guys that are all the same style. You need guys, at least one wing that complements the center, skill wise and chemistry wise. So to me, if I'm looking to make some serious surgery on this roster, I'm trying to figure out how they can defend better, and maybe that's just a change in the organizational thinking, and you don't really need to make a ton of changes. But I feel like if you're trading a Simone Nemec, let's say, because he's asking for too much money, or you're trading a Dawson Mercer, you better get somebody that plays both ends of the ice, because I feel like that's the area to me. Just looking at ClearSight, 27th, I think, in expected goals against at 5-on-5. Got to be better if you're going to be a team that contends.
But I still think, I mean, when one guy goes down, the offense goes stale, right? Like I think that's kind of been the
Well,
story.
we
I know you
talked about
can't
that.
you can't plan for it, but you kind of have to.
No. Yeah, but you
No,
can't. Like,
you
what do
can't.
you? So but you can't sit there. To I think Arthur's point, you have enough offensively gifted guys. Like, I don't think the whole point is. I think you could be almost. It's you got to hit on it, and you got to have the right people with the right eyes assessing who you're going to target. But I don't think a Jordan Kyrou is like the pick. Like
Yeah.
in a perfect world, sure, this team would be more offensive. They're pretty damn offensive right now. And then in that world, if heaven forbid one of the big guys gets injured, now you at least are sustainable in that same kind of offensive outlook that you have. Like a guy for me, just to give an example of what I think would be worthwhile of kicking around, would be like a Mason Marchment. He's pending UFA in Columbus, $4.5 million. Like he's gonna get bumped up, but like get another big body with Meyer, and then maybe it doesn't work. Maybe they're not good together, but you at least they need to get bigger. They have to get bigger. And when I say hold on a second, because all Devil fans are gonna be like, oh, this is what you mean. This is where they got in trouble. I don't mean just bigger like mutant bigger. I mean like top 6 caliber players that can play with those guys bigger. They are they need more of that. And I think you can get away with it. I think you can get away with it on the top line there, but you got to have some buttons you're able to push. And I think like an example, I think Mason Marchment would be a valuable one.
Probably the only one when I look at upcoming free agents that's like remotely even a fit. Like nobody else. I mean, everyone's old too in this year's free agency class. Like I don't see any other name that stands out like that. Like there's not a lot to pick from. I mean, maybe.
I mean, the biggest one.
What about Mantha with the year he's had in Pittsburgh? Like Mantha could be another one.
He's a big body. He is not a force, though. He's a guy. He's having a. I also would not want to commit to him any number or term coming off of this ridiculous year he's having. He's been a hot and cold guy for a lot of his career.
Do you know what my nickname for him has always been? Did I tell you guys this one?
No.
And I the only reason why I'm saying this year is because he's not being this year, so it's been good. I refer to him as Anthony Boytha. So he plays like a little boy sometimes.
That's good.
And this year he's playing like fucking Anthony Mantha. He's playing like a man this year. Like he's playing big and strong, and I love it. So if he can continue this, like this is what we've been waiting for with Anthony Mantha, and he's doing it now. What is he? 31? Is that what I think he's around that age?
Yeah,
or whatever.
31.
Like, it's you figured out how to do it kind of at 31. Like, does that mean you're going to be this the rest of the way, or are you more of what you've been up to this point? Like, I don't know. To Arthur's point, like it's a gutsy one. I think the bigger thing with him, he's got 31 goals, or whatever. He's going to get paid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think a bad team's going to pay him a shit ton of money, and I hope he's Anthony Mantha the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think he'll get like $4.5 million, not like. He's making 2.5 right now.
I think he gets 6. I think he gets north of 6.
I think he get 2 times 6 or 3 times 6. There's people when the cap goes up, Johnny.
But I guess third liners are making like 5, 6 now.
They feel this compulsion to spend the money because it looks like you're doing something.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Next one.
Next voicemail.
Hey, I'm just curious. What should the Devils do about their goaltending situation next year? Nico Daws the last couple of years has shown a lot of promise. Obviously, you have 2 older goaltenders locked up. Do you just buy out Markey, whose buyout cap hit is not that bad, and then run Allen and Daws and sign a reliable third stringer? Or do you potentially lose Daws? What are your thoughts on the goaltending situation moving into next season for the Devils? Thank you.
That is from Dan. Rupper, you still think they fucked up with how they handled Markstrom in the beginning of the year, right? Like that's kind of where you lie.
I mean, he was hurt, so you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and putting him back in that Colorado game was a little bit of malpractice. I do wonder how all these front office moves that are going to happen, how the goalie department will shake out for them, because from that to running with Markstrom, whatever it was, 7 or 8 starts, I know they were out of it, but Jake Allen had a really good year. And I feel like he is a guy that we've talked about it. If he's going to be part of a 1A, 1B setup, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'd look, I think whoever comes in is going to have take a long, hard look at whether Markstrom is part of the solution for these next couple of years. And the buyout is a lot to swallow, and that's a big chunk of money. But I think Nico Daws, when he came up early in the year and played a couple of games, he looked okay. I think you have to throw it open to a competition. You can't just say Markstrom and Allen are the guys, and that's what we're doing going forward. It hasn't worked since Markstrom's been here, not well enough anyway. And this year was just a disaster in net for Markstrom. So, I'm just interested to see how the new front office plays it and what their plan is. You're not going to go out and just materialize a new number one goalie. And you saw how long it took Fitzy, even when this guy was the target for a long time, how long it took him to pull the trigger on that, because you just can't. It's so hard to predict these guys from year to year, especially when they get to be the age that Markstrom is. So, the extension was probably a little bit premature, but maybe based on real analytics showing that you really weren't going to have another option. And maybe there's a way for Daws to outplay somebody in training camp. I don't know if they can commit to Daws and Allen, but I would prefer to see some different makeup in net going into next season if there's going to be all these other changes.
And Mikhail Yegorov hasn't signed his entry-level deal yet. He's probably going back to BU for another year, I would imagine, after this year was pretty shaky for him.
19, 20. He's still a couple of years away.
He's a stud, though. Yeah, he's a stud. Bad year for him in BU. Like, it was kind of a uncharacteristic year for the Terriers, but like when he gets his shot at pro, like Yegorov is the future's there. I think he's a second-round pick. So they just need to buy this window for like 2-3 years of goaltending. They shouldn't go out and pay someone a ton of money. Yeah.
No, agree.
Anything from you up around the goaltending for the Devils?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
same old shit.
I really like Jacob Markstrom. I do a lot. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been good enough. And there to your point, like I think they should have ran Jake a little more this year. And because they needed just to know kind of what they're getting through some stretches, and it was really hit or miss. And so to your point, I think they got a few years this window. Like I'm not saying I don't think that Markey can figure it out, but they've got to figure out how to get this working. And is it moving on from him? I don't think it's moving Jake Allen. Like, I think Jake Allen's like he's your guy. He's your
great
solid
contract.
When you look
Safety
at these
net.
two guys,
Total safety net.
this should be a strength of this team. A strength. Go look across the league and you talk about just what they've done in their careers, and like that should be a real strength of this team, and it wasn't. And so that's gonna have to be figured out. I know a lot of people are saying Nico Daws is really good in the American League. Like, what's that look like? Something's gonna have to change in some regard there.
Yeah. Just one last quick Devils thing before we shift gears into the Rangers. I saw the stat from CJ Totoro. Jesper Bratt has now scored 70 points in 5 consecutive seasons. The only other players with the longest active streaks are Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's it. Pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't fact check it, but I trust him.
If he'd done it while Jack was out, I'd be a little more impressed. But
yeah,
I guess you take it where you can get it.
He probably, for me, had one of the more snake-bitten seasons I've seen this year. Like, he'll have nights, even during that time, Arthur, when Jack was out, where he might be the best player on the ice for both teams. He just couldn't fucking score. Like, he could not score. And I felt like he was getting a breakaway every other game. Sometimes it felt like 2 in a game. And he just couldn't do it. Like, he'd pull you out of your seat with the actual move, but then it would be like a crossbar, or the puck would roll off his stick, or he'd shoot it wide, or like it was a very strange season. So for him to have those numbers still they were pretty impressive, because he couldn't buy a goal there for a while.
Yeah. You want to hear something sad?
You look at the numbers on ClearSight, the goal differential between actual goals and expected goals for the Devils. Every single guy, Meyer, Bratt, Hischier, even Jack, huge negatives, huge underperformances. And so the chances were definitely there. You know, they were, in terms of expected goals, they were top 10 all year long. And on the power play, I think they were 1 for a while in terms of chances that they generated, high danger chances they generated. So I think maybe that's something to hang your hat on, that kind of bad luck can't continue. You know, these are not guys, you're not fourth liners that are getting these open chances where, you know, maybe the skill isn't good enough to convert them. These are guys that are used to performing. So, you know, it's another notch for whoever's coming in the front office as coach to say, maybe you don't need to change a whole lot with this team. You just need to kind of wait out the bad luck, make some tweaks defensively, and they'll be right back at it.
For the sports betting folks that listen to our show, you guys can feel my pain on this one. I know we don't really go into like the bets that we make necessarily for the season long, I guess time frame. But every year before the season starts, I put in like 1 or 2 like season long parlays of like 4 or 5 30 goal scorers. This year I put in a $200 to win $72,000 parlay. I had Mika Zibanejad, Andrei Svechnikov, Jesper Bratt, and Drake Batherson all to score 30 goals. Jesper Bratt's the only person to miss. Would have won 72 grand. 72. He was the one I was most confident in also. But those season-long plays, shout out Bet365, our sponsor, those are the most fun to follow. You're checking box scores every night if you don't watch the actual game. And, man, like when Jesper was at, like, he had 11 goals, I think, like 40 games in, and I was like, man, this is going to fucking kill me.
So
and the other guys.
So on the pod, when you were dragging your lip for all those weeks on the pod, was it because the Rangers sucked, or was it because Jesper Bratt wasn't getting you your numbers?
It was Jesper Bratt. As soon as I knew the Rangers were done in the playoffs, all my focus went to Jesper Bratt. Like that was it. But you know, I dabble in sports betting. I don't like do it all the time, but like the season long plays, I love. Like I love doing the off season, like looking to the numbers, and I was like, oh, Brad hasn't had a 30 goal season in like 3 years. He's due for one, and you know, Batherson, I was on the money. Like I knew he'd have a big year. I thought he'd have 40. He missed a few games at the start. Svechnikov, another big year. And Mika, we all knew he needed a bounce back. So I was like, this is the one. It's going to hit. I'm telling you. And I had a couple of people ride it too, like Pasha.
What's he at now? What, Brad?
22. He needs an 8-goal game.
No.
He can do it.
He's due. He's due.
Yeah, he's due. Last year, the one guy I'm like, so this is back-to-back years now where I've had one guy miss. Last year was Marchand. He got hurt. He was 6 goals away. But next year's our year. So if you want to get in on that for next year, DM me. We'll place it together over the summer. It's fun. It reminds me of like I guess Moneyball or something where you're kind of like looking at numbers and stuff, and then you put it together. It's like an investment for the season. But all right, let's get back into the topic here. Let's go into the New York Rangers. Big announcement today. Someone you both know better than I do, Jonathan Quick, will be making his last NHL start tonight. Obviously, a very historic career. UMass guy, for sure, Hall of Famer. I'd imagine there's no doubt about that.
No doubter. First ballot.
Yeah. Were you guys surprised by this though, or no?
No, I think the way that the season went, I don't know that he was necessarily going to fight to stay here. I don't know that with Dylan Garand maybe showing a little promise that they were going to fight to keep him as the backup. He did struggle quite a bit when Shesterkin was out, even though I think he's going to end up kind of a net negative, goals saved above expectation. But you watch him, and I thought listening to some of the quotes that the media down in Florida had, where you could hear the sourness in his voice when he said, yeah, we tried to keep it a secret, but my wife isn't really good at keeping secrets. So a lot of people knew that this is his last game. And that is perfect. Jonathan Quick, a guy who really, really dislikes the spotlight in a big way. When he's not on the ice, he's, as clutch a performer in net as we've ever seen in the last 20 years. And you still see him at age 40, his flexibility where he throws himself around the net. He's such a throwback. And that to me is the saddest part about him retiring, is we're not going to see that kind of goalie anymore. The kind of the Marty Brodeur, the kind of the unstructured, I'm just going to use my skill and my flexibility and my body to stop the puck any way I can. And might lose a stick, I might lose some equipment, might get up and start throwing a few punches. This guy, it comes from that Dominik Hasek school of, I'm going to stop the puck and fuck you any way I can. And it was fun to watch up close. you could always talk to him as long as you weren't talking to him about him. He was great to talk to in his couple of years in New York, and I think his influence on Igor Shesterkin, seeing how close they got, which is really a first for Igor to have a goalie partner that he looked up to and really trusted that much. He never really had that here before that. I think his influence will be here for a while.
When I think of Jonathan Quick, I think he's probably in his career, but I'd probably say, I don't know, since the year 2000 or so. I think he's the most explosive goalie down low, and how strong he is with his like kind of crab walk around the blue paint. And he'll get his body in a position where he's dropping
crab
back.
walk is so good.
What's that?
I've never heard that. Crab walk is so good. Like he is like.
He comes across. He comes across with power in those situations. Like it's not like just to put a toe on it. Like I always think of the old the Stanley Cup Finals. Was that Richter?
Penalty
when he's
shot,
kind of dropping back to it, and he goes goes both feet to the post basically, and whatever. Anyways, just that movement, like when Quickie's in
I
that
you're like
movement.
whatever about like the biggest save in Rangers history.
No. I'm not saying. All I'm saying is like I was trying to paint a picture of like that when you're in that position, torso forward on the ice, and you're both your legs back at both posts basically. And I've seen guys, and I heard guys talk about it. I mean, I played against them where it's like you try to jam a puck in there. Like he makes the first save, and sometimes like it's a little more difficult now because the rule changes that they don't allow you to push the goalie's foot or pad into the net, but they used to let you. They're pretty liberal with what you could do as far as pushing that puck in. You couldn't. I'm like, how the fuck is he doing this? Like, you know what I mean? Like his face is on the ice, his body, like I don't know how it bends that way to begin with, and he has like strength. Like he was such a unique goaltender and an elite competitor. So. I just love this stuff too, where I just think it's super cool, man. I love when guys have the career they have, and then just even the stuff with I was watching some quotes or saw some quotes, I should say, where he was just being very complimentary for all the teams he played for, obviously the LA Kings and the Rangers, but then like very complimentary on Vegas and even the way that Columbus kind of handled everything. And I thought that was very classy. But just the fact that when he went through that stretch there, it kind of felt like, oh man, this is like one of the greats that we've had. And I want it to end a certain way. And he got to play for his boyhood team. Like that's cool shit. You know what I mean? Like and he was really good too. And I know this year wasn't great, but like, I mean, how fun was it to watch Quickie in some of those games? Like where, it got to a point there, I think his first season, wasn't that after was it after All-Star break where they kind of like they gave Shesterkin a couple extra days to kind of work with the goaltending coach because they're like Quickie's being fucking great. Like it was awesome.
His net. It was his net.
I loved it, man. I love seeing him back to that level. So yeah, man, it's kind of sad because one of the greatest and huge USA hockey guy too. So yeah, great career for him.
And I'll jump in. Sorry, Johnny, and I'm going to throw this to you, buddy. Ranger fans hate his guts. Ranger fans, he is the main reason why the Rangers didn't even get a sniff of that 2014 Stanley Cup final. He was incredible. I remember being at those games at Staples Center, those overtime games. He was just turning shots away. He was frustrating guys. And I remember when they signed him, hearing from a couple Ranger fans being like, I don't know if I'm going to root for this guy. Johnny, I'm sure you were one of them. 14 was a seminal moment for you and your Ranger fandom. And to have him play the way that he did in 24, to win over the fan base. I understand he's a local guy and from here, but John, like you can tip your cap to that, a guy who you and your friends hated, and here he is going out on a high.
I was more mad at Dan Girardi than anyone. Dan Girardi, I'll never forgive him for that turnover in game 1 or game 2, maybe. He like fell on his knees, goes right to Justin Williams. He goes fucking short side bink on Lundqvist, blocker side.
Right,
I was like, damn.
We don't need to relive your childhood. We just
Sorry, back to the topic, John.
For what it's worth,
and I love Dan Girardi.
Quickie pissed off Quickie pissed off 2 of the fan bases because the Devils fans hate him too.
Yeah, true. He was a much bigger difference in that series, I think, than he was the Ranger one. The Rangers, they blew back-to-back 2-goal leads, I think, in games 1 and game 2.
Yeah.
But again, we won't revisit that. Yeah, awesome job. Jonathan Quick is probably the most intimidating person to interview. That is for sure in my early career. Arthur, I think I remember probably the first ever scrum I went in with Quick. I think I walked up to you and I was like, he doesn't really talk much, does he? Like, and you were like, yeah, don't go over to him ever again. You won't get anything.
Like I said, you could talk to him about anything, about goaltending, about in general. I remember asking him about goalie interference, and we had a nice long conversation. You ask him anything about him and his career while he was playing, no chance.
Yeah.
I remember this. His first cup. Do you remember his parade? At the parade when they were on stage. Quickie led.
I remember something.
He said, he's like, I don't know. It was like the first. I'm sure it happened prior, but it's the first one that I kind of recognized. Like a guy kind of showing his true colors, like just being happy, whatever. He dropped an F-bomb or did something, and it's like we didn't really see that in the NHL. Now we're seeing, since then we see, TJ Oshie's drinking beers through his jersey. You got Kucherov pounding Bud Lights.
Yeah.
Like it's become something. But I felt like he was one of the first ones that kind of just let your true colors out. I thought it was good.
Ovi's, I told you we not going to be fucking suck this year, or whatever it was that he said. That was the best one of all time. One other topic, I don't know if we could really dive into it too much, but I saw it floating over Rangers Twitter and whatnot over the weekend. The Drew Fortescue scratch. Arthur, I feel like you could probably talk to this more. I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but obviously there was an $80K bonus for him if he played 10 games, but there's also this 10.2C thing as far as contracts go and offer sheets and what qualifies him and whatnot. And Ranger fans were talking about if they in no way, shape, or form did the New York Rangers screw a kid out of $80,000. MSG can afford $80,000. So can we just maybe clear that up if you know about it better than I do? And I don't mean to put you on the spot here if you don't want to talk about it. I know it wasn't necessarily.
I looked at it a little bit. Yeah, I don't think this is bonus related. This is very clearly service time related and related to offer sheets once he comes out of his ELC. And that stuff, it's complicated shit, man. I understand the bonus part, and there are, when he gets to his second deal, there's ways to make it up to guys like that. You can kind of, I don't think it's necessarily above board, but you can say to an agent who's maybe calling a GM and saying like, hey, what are you doing to my guy? Say like, look, this is the reason. Agents are certainly aware of that service time stuff too. So when his ELC is done and you see him sign his next deal, whether it's a bridge deal or something long-term, there might be a little, one of those 10 games played bonuses for $100K or $200K in the first year. And you'll be like, we can all think back and be like, oh, okay, that's the little payback then for not getting him his money right off the bat here. But again, he came in, he's burning the first year of his ELC to be here straight out of college. So that's, that's a sign that they want this kid to be here. This is not a trying to screw him and set him up to have a confrontation in the first 2 weeks of his NHL career. So I think the money part is the headline, but really the true nature of it is making sure that he's not eligible for an offer sheet in a couple of years.
Thank you for clearing that up. I think we have one more voicemail just to get to before we wrap up today's show. So Vic, I know you wanted to cue this one up from Chris.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This one's for Johnny. I was going to send a DM to you, but I figured with what it is I'm requesting, it might be better to be bold and send in a voicemail. So my roller hockey buddies recently had the pleasure of meeting you at an Islander game. I don't think any Islander fans had any pleasure, but my friends did. And they told me that they may have convinced you to join their roller hockey team, at least in like a part-time role. We know you're a very busy guy, very busy schedule. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. It's so exciting, And then, the gears start turning a little bit. And I thought, oh, it'd also be really cool and exciting if I ruffle a few feathers and throw my hat in the ring to try and recruit you over to my squad. I don't really have sign-on bonuses or anything that I can really kind of out-level them, but I think we've got cooler jerseys. You'll get top-line minutes. I'm sure they'd probably give you top-line minutes too, but
Rupper
just being
shaking his head.
honest here. Speaking of honesty, hey, these guys just came up of a championship win, still rolling on a pretty good season. My guys are 1-6. We're a brand new squad. And I think we could really use a guy like you to spice things up a little bit. And plus, we have a 2-game rivalry set with them each season. It'd be hilarious to see the looks on their faces with you on the other side. But, all love. If you want to go with them, no offense taken. But let me know. I'll send you a DM. Take it easy.
Yeah, I feel like I got to go with Chris, guys, right? 1-6 record going against a championship team. It sounds like they're tanking for me. So, Chris, shoot me that DM. I'll come play. And yeah, that'd be funny as hell to see the look on those guys' faces if I roll up one night. So thank you for that call. But yeah, anything else, guys, on your minds before we get into, I guess, the last games of the season here? Rangers got Florida. Islanders got Carolina. I did see Stefan Rosner put out a tweet that Victor Eklund will play tomorrow night for the Islanders.
Oh, good. Yeah, that makes sense.
About that. So that's something to look forward to.
I'll throw out two things. Did a little research. Rangers have never finished in the bottom three since the league expanded to 21 teams. Never finished a regular season in the bottom three. They're 30th right now. That's a wild stat to me that through some of their bad years in the early 2000s, games that I covered in the 90s. So this is a unique year that they've been start to finish bad, and we'll see where they end up. But if they're smart, they'll play hard and not win either of these last two, and make sure that they've got at least a shirt of a top 5 pick, and maybe even jump up in the lottery, and we'll see where that goes. So that's good. And number 2, and I throw this out there to our watchers and listeners to address in the comments. We mentioned it briefly, but the three of us and our producer Vic have a little side bet going this season. Whoever's team finished with the most points, not finished in the playoffs, but the most points of the 4 teams, gets dinner. And the Islanders have clinched that. And in our group chat, suddenly I'm getting a little noise from the three of you jerk-offs that you're not going to pay up because the Islanders were the best of the shitty teams. It's that they were the best bad team of this quartet. And I'm feeling like if you guys back out of this, it's going to be a little difficult to move forward with the pod into next season. I don't know if I can trust you guys.
I most definitely did not try to get back out.
All right, so it was just Johnny and Vic.
It was the other two.
All right,
you don't earn a dinner for missing the playoffs. That's bullshit.
Hey, best team is the best team. That's right. Vic decided it went from steak dinner to a little Mickey D's. So I'll take whatever you guys can offer. Vic's not even going to be around in the city to fulfill it. So hopefully he can just Venmo us.
I'm happy that you want people in the comments though to chime in. I'm curious to hear it's going to be Rangers.
I hope that nobody backs out. That's all I'm saying. So we'll see.
I'm gonna pay it. I'm gonna pay it now because my squad's gonna run off the next 5 years. So if I set the tone,
that's right.
You guys won't back out.
Right.
Can we pick a shittier restaurant at least? Can it be like under 100?
You're the guy who lives in the city, Johnny. That's where we're meeting. So you can pick whatever spot you like.
2 months ago, it was like a Luger's dinner. Now it's going to be like I don't even know. They're opening up. I saw they're opening up a Chili's on 17th and Broadway. Why don't we go there?
All right.
Half off apps. Great show today, guys. It sucks that the season's ending and like we won't be able to talk about any of these teams going into the playoffs. But I guess there is one thing to look forward to tonight, and we'll get into our Bet365 bet of the night. There are a few things more stressful than a close hockey game. One late back check can make all the difference between a chance at playoff glory or an early spring tea time. That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, is offering 3-goal early payout if the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game. They'll pay your bet out early. Hockey fans have enough things to stress about with 3-goal early payout. Now your bets don't have to be one of them. Bet365, download the app today. You must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. And tonight, we're going to take the New York Rangers on the money line in Florida. Jonathan Quick's last career start in the NHL. Got to imagine a guy like that goes out with a win. I would hope the guys in front of him play well enough to get him that, especially with the Florida team that's depleted and not really playing anybody. So the Rangers are minus 155 tonight in Florida. Going to ride that one out and ride Jonathan Quick into the sunset. So great show today. Thanks to everyone who left a voicemail. I I don't know if we'll do voicemails Thursday, but if you want to leave them. Vic always plays them before to make sure they're good enough for the show. And if he hears one that he likes, I'm sure he'll put it on here. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you Thursday.
What the fuck happened?
Hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see some more Tri-State hockey content, don't forget to leave a like and comment on the video below, and also subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel.